Senator Angus King joining us right now. He is on the Senate Intelligence Committee. You deal a lot with the FBI. I want to ask you, sir, do you believe that there are going to be changes because of what we dealt with here in Orlando? We'll talk about what kind of changes next, but do you think anything will change?
Well, I think it's hard to say that anything is specifically going to change, but I think, for example, the no-fly, no-buy, controlling the sale of guns to people who are on a terrorist watch list, I think that's a pretty likely outcome of this. I think people are finally saying, hey, that's just common sense, as long as there's some kind of relief valve for people who are wrongly on that list. But I think you may see that happen, Chris, maybe even in the next few days.
I see two problems with that. The first is that's no guarantee of anything. Senator Feinstein just put out a list that 91% of people on the terror watch list who apply for guns get them. So that's not like that's some kind of real restriction. And also, as it bears relationship to Orlando, he wouldn't have been on. Yes.
Well, she was saying 91% get them now. Under this proposed legislation, they wouldn't. I think that's the point, that these are people that are on the terrorist watch list who are able to get guns today, and what we're talking about is changing that so that they're unable to do so. But you're right, and this guy
but there'd
on
still be
this,
due
in this
process.
case wouldn't have. Oh, yeah, there's got to be due process.
You wouldn't be able
to.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, please, Senator, make the point about due process.
Well, I think the point is that you can't just say people's constitutional rights are abridged just arbitrarily. They have to have an opportunity to say they're on the list improperly, there was a mistake made, the names were mixed up. So there has to be a constitutional relief valve. My understanding is that that's going to be in the legislation, but I think that still the legislation should make a difference. The question is, would it in this case? No. Are there guarantees? Chris, they're never going to be guarantees. This is a dangerous place, but we've got to try to close the doors as we identify them.
Sources at the FBI are making a little bit of a different case for what Orlando means. They say, we closed the case on this guy. He wouldn't have been on a no-fly list. Their concern is that they knew something was up with him, right? 2013, they had the case, they heard things that they don't want to be hearing about any American, but they couldn't make the case. 2014, his name comes up again. And now, a couple of years after that, he goes to buy long and handguns, and they have no ability to even really be informed about that, right? Because the FBI is a big entity, and that doing the background checks doesn't necessarily communicate with the people who investigated this man earlier. But they don't have the authority, even if they did find out, to flag him for an interview. Do you think that should change?
Yeah, I think one of the things that if you're on a list and there's some kind of reasonable suspicion and then there's a purchase,
but no
there
list,
should be a
Senator.
ping.
He wasn't on any list. He wouldn't have been on a list. No
But
list. Forget about the lists. I'm saying because Orlando is not relevant to that.
If you have been a person of interest to the FBI, and again, this is where the Constitution and freedom and what we are as a country, it's a thin line. But I think if somebody has been investigated by the FBI for terrorist-related activity, clearly they're in the record somewhere. They know that they were there, and they go and purchase a gun. There should be a ping, and a question should be raised. Not that they can't purchase the gun, but a question should be raised during that 72-hour waiting period, and maybe there can be further questioning and following up. We've got to try to close these doors. As I say, we are in a dangerous situation, and this is one of the ways I think we can try to deal with it.
Not to hear it from not Senator King, but Congressman King. Steve King said, well, I don't know that I want someone's Second Amendment rights abridged when they've already been investigated. The case was closed. I don't know. How long would you keep them in that kind of situation? That's that Second Amendment right issue versus the ability of the FBI to do something involving weapons and someone that they looked at before. Do you think you can win that debate in the current climate?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult. As you know, in a political situation, anything involving guns, one of the problems with the gun discussion, Chris, is it's become sort of all or nothing. It's a litmus test. Anything you say about, even keeping terrorists from getting guns. Oh, you want to abolish the Second Amendment and take my guns away. I mean, that's just not true, but the atmosphere is such that it's very hard for us to have a sort of fact-based discussion around here on these issues. But I think there may be some room to get something done on this issue in this Congress. It's not going to be easy, but I think there is an opportunity, and this case presents it as something that I think most Americans, 90% of Americans would say, wait a minute, you're on a terrorist watch list and you could buy a gun? That's nuts. So I think we're going to be able to maybe move on this.
But it's a little bit of a harder question when the person wasn't on any list, but there are thousands of people who fall into that category. Senator King, thank you very much for having the discussion. Sorry to step on you there. That's a satellite delay. It's not a function of my respect for you. You know that. Take care, Senator.
Thanks, Chris.